for question and answers, to open up the session for the audience to be able to ask questions.
לעשות. Rinpoche יחזור לטקסט וימשיך בנקודה שבה...
So Rinpoche will continue teaching the text.
가서 Rinpoche ngaso latambe bejatir.
어디.
오야, 디 계속만 먹이 교야디. 오야.
슈 니베 겨울에 sabje sumbare nge choi chusha ye
나서.
다 디타긴 로차르제 치 나와다 나기 냠네 상에 띵이 다가서 겨로마도 양교 줄고 말에 나기 냠네 상에 치다샤야 셰메 코네 튠다와자 나셈 만데버 파르도 템베 강소 마차바차 최 탐제 덴버 마투바 고야 덴버 마투바 코네야 마투바 되게 땡딜루메도 중에나 땡딜라 직수 차신 레균데 케도 미스 스타 레균데 케도 미스 생데 랜데라 시타 케치무츠야 차자침보다 저버침은 냠레 진행 지금은 아니 레균데 시타가 하장게 케치무츠 고고요 디치 내가 찍래 다 되네 다 기스 봉동 깨지시고 다 되네만 때 기스 봉동 때 시에나 삼을 중 다때 곰게베깔이야 셈 징루도나 아니 직사 토사당 나와 체살 곰스 아니 리버 훌충스 리버베 당승에 제 도스바드 티체스 아니 믹 당미 투 드레스 믹 난갈 독스 제 때제 드레스 제제 곰스 믹 담에 투 델 따탄트스 양 시부직 셈 고바체제 네베 유리야 토아체제 도스 연구요나 구진 룽셰 채나 세안 룽그 나세 토네 야 고바 주고 멤버 에네 룽셰 토보요나 에네 뭉콩 dan스 마 트로살라 댄스 에네 사자 마사 데마사 에네 네 트로사 어딘데 에네 데고레스 어디지 난가지 샘디 총시랑 매버지 샘디 수술 배 진단탐부터 데스페치 제수이스레 팜메스 파르치기 두 민데 민굴 근데 물사데 이거 마타브라 민데 민굴 두두 파파 두두 마타마제 지마타테 매바스 미 지마 트브트베 매바 참기 르라 샤스 다얀 디네 얀 디직 난가레 랭가 페스 다 삼노다 mendachi deneba 다 마코 제제 셈세점 리즘 틸 에네 삼당기 여 틸야 미고 샤고 여 삼도 라멘다 토두구나 에네 페 사지 게지 잡샤기나 에네 페 코랑 크셔바도 제셔바지 인도 에네 나메 토들람사 체도아지 양코랑 다틸 때네 페인지 여 임바레 랭가 페 타보 잡데 리바 남가단 투기 내가 리바 똥상에 내가 단 남가든 내가 삼라스 에네 귤라 조스네 녜베 지 참바 야마 예데부터 에네 바 잠제지 티샤스 레 타메기 남가라 셈된 양철레와 에네 야케네 조스 다 티파투 럽기 단데네 두단도서 개침부 인사 말을 상도
So this text, in the break time, I briefly went over what Rinpoche taught yesterday. So this text, which can be called an excellent explanation of a profound meaning that is as concise as a mustard seed and as vast as space. So here, with regard to what Rinpoche talked about this morning, Rinpoche briefly mentioned meditation, Rinpoche said that, well, we need to meditate, and he gave some instructions. And then also yesterday spoke about the different methods of resting the mind. And then from there, the text continues on. So Rinpoche would like to share with you what it says in here. So when one meditates, therefore, it's important to understand that phenomena do not exist truly, that they're not truly established. So first of all, well, whatever, let me just read it. So the external appearances versus internal kind of experience, whatever it appears, whatever dawns, without holding on to that, and focusing on the mind itself, with mindfulness, and then understanding that all phenomena lack true existence, that they don't exist truly, but instead they're dependently arisen, and in particular here with regard to the law of karma, that the law of karma is infallible, that a karmic cause gives rise to a karmic effect, and so forth. Then the person should, in that way, focus the mind. And if, for instance, laxity arises, the text recommends, when the mind is sluggish and laxity arises, well, the text suggests to go to a place where you can, well, a high place, for instance, or a very expansive, like where you have an expansive, extensive kind of view to help your mind to get fresh again, to get more focused. So to look at the sky, for instance. And if the mind is excited, when there's too much excitement, then you should close your mind, close your eyes. I mean, not keep them widely open, but slightly close them, and sit in a place that is lower, sit in a kind of slightly lower place. If you're too excited, to sort of bring down the excitement, or when the excitement is too strong, then, well, it may be because of the energy winds in your body. It could be due to the energy winds, the vital winds in the body being disrupted. And again, it may be helpful to be in a dark room, to be in a place, kind of like in a low place, to sit in there, and to allow for the mind to calm down. In the case if it's too loose, if the mind is too loose, then again, it's helpful to kind of keep your eyes slightly closed, to be relaxed in the relaxed fashion, but still hold on to the mind, to let it loose, but to still kind of control it to some degree. And if that still doesn't help, if all sorts of thoughts arise, you may want to loudly express the syllable pe. So that may help. This really, this powerful sound of pe. So if you say this really loudly, that may be helpful in terms of, maybe helpful to kind of focus. So it gives you some focus, something to focus on this particular syllable, saying it loudly and so forth, so that your mind that was previously disrupted and so forth, well, can be pulled back. And also leave whatever where you were doing previously, just leave that, all your activities, because otherwise that will just become stronger. So this kind of disruption will become stronger. So in that sense, therefore, So Rinpoche says that should be enough, that whatever follows from there is not that important. But yeah, so Rinpoche felt that these instructions would be helpful in terms of how to deal with the different disruptions of the mind, if the mind is too lax, if the mind is too excited, and so forth. So these are different possibilities that are described in this particular text here. I'm trying to read at the same time. Some spelling mistakes in here, which makes it a little bit more difficult to know exactly what the words are. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much, yeah. She says that afterwards, I mean, this text doesn't need to be read. The rest of it, it's not that important. Now Rinpoche will continue with the text.
Lama kusum gi cham nyingje ti gyunde tenre gi ti nganden duzi tibe ti senji kejor gi ti naro chudu gi ti chöge ngonyom gi ti sanjo dogom gi ti tat indes do tat tuzo dagas muna domje chindimendo dimero slagi dene tindi chi sare sangdo ta ronyom ko tune namdo lamger nyumo lamger naza lamger handel lamger dungen lamger chiwa lamger re ta tanang ranzo lama chebe gilu ngojo ina lama chebe naliya nuju digbe dribu yonkande mindu dungen chardar pabjuja lenge dribu sebe gyurthone kenge lamdo longba chingilo dorna sange nawa chirshaya chugun nyingbo tongwe nyamlengi chanju semnyi pebe lamjude yiden bashi gomba chingilo sine ta sangta nge chik parche tsama kande chik chungba inaya di kenge la masungwa kenge chole ya gyurje ene yamenane kunzo chanju sen kondu pungdu peya yamenane tondang chanju sen tongwa nyiki tawa o tindegi tawa kone kondu peya o tindegi ya tabli ya ndro tuya chikda tindegi ndro wa che samba pembe top kombe top en ti chedu chosa dribjang kabu sabingi top en ta tindegi en tongwe nyamle gogres sungu ye mare
And Rinpoche said you continue reading the auto commentary by Benjamin Zochoki Gensen. Just a sec, I'll turn down the volume. So Rinpoche continued with the words, those in the lineage of the Dharma master Gyare. So Rinpoche said that's Tsangpa Gyare Shidoje or Tsangpa Gyare. The Dharma master Tsangpa Gyare practice and impart the instructions of the 8 great guides, the 6 cycles of equal taste, and the mountain Dharma. The 8 guides are the guide to the Guru as the 3 Buddha bodies, the guide to loving kindness and compassion, the guide to the dependent origination of cause and effect, the guide to the ambrosia drop like the 5-fold Mahamudra, the guide to inner union, the guide to the 6 yogas of Nirupa, the guide to equalizing the 8 worldly concerns, and the guide to the reversal of ill fortune through secret practices. So she said that's it. It doesn't have anything to add to this explanation that's given here in the text. Then the text continues with the 6 cycles of equal taste are taking concepts as the path, taking afflictions as the path, taking sicknesses as the path, taking gods and demons as the path, taking sufferance as the path, and taking death as the path. So with regard to these 6 cycles of equal taste, well, Rinpoche mentioned that this is important to take situations as the path. So, for instance, in the Guru Yoga, in the Guru Puja, which is also called Lama Chepa, this kind of ritual of Guru Yoga that is performed in the Gelug tradition. So, in there, you find a verse in which it says basically that, well, the different kinds of problems, sufferings, positive, negative phenomena, they rain down on us like the rain, and still we should kind of utilize, we should take them as the path. So basically this is what it's saying. We should take these appearances to meditate on the Dharmakaya and the meditative. So as the translator just read the actual verse, I don't have it in front of me, but anyway, so it says that this is we should practice whatever appearances arise to the mind and understand that they are the result of my karma, so the negative kind of aspects. Anyway, what it says in the Guru Puja, we should act accordingly, because no matter what appears, whether it's positive or negative virtues, positive or negative, harmful or not, well, we'll have certain obstacles, of course, but we shouldn't see them as obstacles as such. We shouldn't regard them as such, but rather utilize them, use them as our practice, kind of integrate them into our practice, take them as the path, in the sense if we could utilize them to strengthen our practice of conventional bodhicitta, that is the mind that wants to become enlightened, that aspires to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Oh, sorry, but I missed that again because of the volume. Anyway, so unfortunately, I won't be able to read to you the Lama Chepa, but you'll probably find it on your own. But mainly Rinpoche's instructions were, well, utilize whatever disadvantage, whatever kind of problem arises, don't regard it as a problem, but rather integrate it into your practice by way of integrating it from the point of view of conventional bodhicitta, so the aspiration to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, or from the point of view of the ultimate mind of enlightenment, so ultimate bodhicitta, which is the mind realizing emptiness. So in other words, to make it to understand that it doesn't exist the way it appears. Therefore, whatever negative aspects, whatever problems you have in life, well, you turn them around and make them part of your practice in such a way that they will benefit you. And this helps you then also, as it goes on to say, of the different practices. So accumulating merit, of purifying negativities and so forth. So these different aspects. So the different aspects of the path, therefore, that we listen to the teachings, accumulate merit, purifying. Sorry, I couldn't hear again just now. But as far as I understood, what Rinpoche said was, well, previously Rinpoche said you accumulate merit and purify negativities, and then prepare basically for your next life. Sorry, I had some technical issue here because of the volume.
Ritual subju genshis korsums shadam genyi les tangone ritu yunden kunjungs da ritual subju genshi shebe ritu yunden kunjungs sawa wangi toches doji lugi beshes parjur tida shis pan tagas nagunar banyo gyabe sorchena ene richu yunden kunjung sing tumo lamjang so ro de che ene sawa wang tu che sing de en minje gi wang de che doji lu gi beshe sing di ene ji wang top ne ene di jel gezo gi nyamlen ti di che ene tela tene ene ji o tanden di parduti da shi sa di karung sewal jaya 어떤 지 콜로사르와 따뜻하가서 문화 dom제인다 나군을 투스바니 잡나이 다 니바니스 샤담 게니 사티만다 마티 킥스기 겐스 곰붕 카차기 겐스 다 마티 킥스기 겐스 겐디 dire pena lam teda te gombe kable ya ene chigzagi lungi ene tindegi kyenda ji nyam midawa chungsuna ti kapdale ya dine dine gugresne ene ji nyamnyong thone ene kamzam gi ene mandeshe kyen shabadala mati kiksel gi gens ene tom gumbum sadene nyamnyong gi gursung shabadwa ene sibu descent tenzi gens segmento descent tenzi gen nam sauce sibu descent ten sauce tenzi gen that they imada teche otibatu chiksung shoron.
לאחר מכן הטקסט אומר
So
לדרמה.
then the text goes on. So in other words, Rinpoche previously said, well, any kind of obstacles, take it and to the path in order to then extend your practice of accumulating merit, purifying negativities, and so forth. Then Rinpoche went on, continued with the text. As for the mountain Dharma, there are 4 ornaments of profound teaching, and the 3 ornaments of the sphere of our instructions. Of these, the first consists of the mountain Dharma, the source of all higher qualities. The secret, the great ship of the empowerment, the hidden explanation of the Vajra body, and guidance on the intermediate state. Now, Rinpoche says he's not sure as to the meaning of this particular passage, but he believes what it could refer to is that the first of these 4 mentioned here, so the mountain Dharma, the source of all higher qualities, that may refer to the sutric path, the path that is common to both Sutra and Tantra. So engaging in the practices that are common to Sutra and Tantra, therefore the Sutric path as a basis. Thereafter, and it goes on to say, the secret, the great ship of empowerment, that probably refers to taking the empowerments which ripen the mind. Then it goes on to say, the hidden explanation of the Vajra body, well, having attained empowerment in one of the meditative practices or in one of the meditative deities, then you engage in the practices of the generation stage and the completion stage. And then it goes on to say, and guidance on the intermediate state. Well, then once you've done all this, you take the intermediate state, you take death, intermediate state, and so forth into the path. So Rinpoche says he's not 100% sure about the meaning of whether that's referring to these different aspects just mentioned. But anyway, that's his opinion. Thereafter, it goes on to say, the second consists of the ornament of direct guidance, clearing away the obstacles. So here, that refers to the practice of applying the channels and the different practices, so the different practices of the path by way of the channels and so forth.
근데 인도 상해게 남도 가르치네 될 톡지 체제 아니 샘데 데싱에 가두이나 샘쇠 팅딩 지기 근데지 고야지 개침부래 디인자 남도 남게르스 아니 지점기 지 차우자 전부다 아니 대도예면 근데 겁네 레도 몽부 쉬우지 슉처처 누구도나 아니 디기 차자 전부다 대동 예매도 조천다 또 고만네도 마송해 다치기 임바래 어딘데 인도 가나 탐제 아니 리바 이시기 셈기 딱딱이 디와 셈디 야초다다 아니 남도도 야초럽단다 아니 랑단딘 남케 당단다 어딘데 지기 간다 셈기 로발 샤데버치레 디게til이야 아니 투나레 서머르지기 도스chen 흘려대지 고기에 임바래 딘델이야 상하 닝마기 치 카셰 치 누가 첨부 요래 나랑도 또 순고 공부도 와 나랑도 순고 공부 날 내가 진행되기도 상말로 당연들이야 도지라와다 메리다 디치로네 야 용타메 지 소기 삼바르지 서서 순고도 타스지르지 검제 어디나래 야 룽스부점이야 추다메 삼든르지 검제 어딘데 체제 다디 배 도지라와다 랑가와지 아니 메드 랑가와지 어딘데 지 검제 어딘데르지 삼노 코고도 상하기 닝메 슝구나 랑중 이시 초절나스 다 틴데기 도지라와 메르디 랑중 이시 디 로발 샤데바지스 랑중 이시 초절나스 아니 마리 투나 기기시스 다 투나 등기 생인데 칠로네 랑가와지 요마르스 수수이 기기 마리 바단 도차다 샤단다 틴데기 뇨몽베 아니 투나를 샤데바지레스 마리 투나 기기시스 기기 컨디션스나 투나티레스 마리 투나 기기시스 달 100 짐베 투나 기스 지 할레기 돈스네야 가버로 지체 온델레기 돈스는 감다로 지체 100 짐베 투나 기스 대전롱도 에네 가리나 지레 다 지금 오면든 로토마송 다 100 짐베 투나 기부터 가르랬으나 아니 생기 춘이함 리바 이시기 랑심메바 때나메바 디기 에네 딱 강가도 숭야레스나 어두스 숭기야레티 치드존 에 구주 정보도 왔어 마란주 숭고 검사 너제 기드 칸데지 임바 너제 기드레 숭탕 칸데시 임바 너제 기드 중탕 칸데시 임바 어텐데도 왔어 텐데 인자 남도 람제르스
Now, Rinpoche previously also said, well, as to the second, the ornament of direct guidance, clearing away the obstacles, the ornament of the catalog, 100,000 songs. So of direct guidance here is like the Lama guiding you in terms of the practices, gives you his own experience on the basis of his or her own experience, then guides you on the path. And giving you the route instructions as well as the different transmissions. Then it goes on to say the ornament of the catalog of 100,000 songs. So these are the songs, like the spiritual songs based on someone's experience. So this is what Rinpoche explained. He didn't explain the third aspect, the ornament of the minor scattered teachings. And then Rinpoche went back to the 6 cycles of equal taste, saying that this needs to be explained further. It needs to be expanded on further. Or expounded on further in the sense that, well, when we engage in these practices, the practice of the union of bliss and emptiness, as well as Dzogchen, the great completion, and Mahamudra and so forth, well, discursive thoughts will arise. Actually, we're supposed to be free, as it said as it was mentioned earlier, we should be free of any expectations, any worries, and so forth. However, it's difficult. Therefore, Rinpoche says it's, first of all, really important it's really important to loosely relax the mind. I mean, for the mind, it has to be loose and relaxed. That is important. And then it goes on to say that, Rinpoche continued then, well, to remember, first of all, that everything arises from the mind, that all phenomena basically arise from the mind. So I think the Hebrew translator is probably looking for the verse when it talks about be free from worries and expectations. Anyway, so here Rinpoche says to really be free from worries and expectations, it's important to understand that everything that happens, they're just appearances to the mind. So whether we practice the union of bliss and emptiness, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and so forth. So to see that the mind is just, as Rinpoche previously read this quote, I'm also going to look for it right now, read this quote in which it said that the innate mind itself is Dharmakaya, where the mind is compared to Just a minute. The innate mind itself is Dharmakaya, it said, where the mind, the innate mind, the essential mind is like an ocean. And then it goes on to say the innate concepts are waves of Dharmakaya. So the concepts here, it's like taking concepts as the path, transforming them into the path. So likewise here, the innate concepts are waves of Dharmakaya. They're just expressions of the Dharmakaya, and the innate appearances are the light of the Dharmakaya. So all these appearances are like the bluish light at an ocean, or of an ocean. So going back to, therefore, what it says here, taking concepts as the path, we need to remember that and see these objects that are the content of our mind, in other words, as being that, just being parts of our mind, just being appearances of our minds that are similar with our mind being like an ocean, and the thoughts and so forth being just like a temporary waves. And actually, it is beautiful how in some of the texts of the Nyingma tradition, the tantric texts of the Nyingma tradition, they give very beautiful explanations of exactly that, of taking concepts as the path. Now, many times, what happens if you've practiced, especially Tantra, there's a sense of having to remove obstacles. In the sense, it's like the very strong notion of these obstacles come from the outside. They are these external objects we need to protect ourselves against. So to meditatively kind of establish, or to visualize this vajra fence that surrounds you and doesn't let anything in. You have like protective wheels that destroy any kind of obstructing forces and so forth. There's a sense there are these real vajra fences, very concrete vajra fences, very solid protective wheels that can keep anything away from you. Well, we need to understand that that is also a mistaken kind of idea of these rituals that we're going through, because in the end, all our obstacles actually come from our mind. They're not the obstacles that usually we point at the external forces and so forth, but they're not really. The main obstacle doesn't really come from the outside, but from within. So in the Nyingma scriptures, in some of the Nyingma texts on the tantric practices, there are also quotes such as, and Rinpoche gave an example here, so a quote such as when it says, phenomena are mere display, are mere elaborations of the self-arisen gnosis, or the self-arisen primordial wisdom, and that they are our sense of reality is mistaken. So it's on the basis of mistaken appearances that we hold on to onto a reality that is impossible, that we hold on to an existence that is impossible. And it basically comes from our misapprehension of reality, our misperception, as well as, well, then these misperceptions giving rise to attachment, giving rise to aversion, and so forth. So these are all mistaken appearances. When we distinguish, for instance, between a celestial being like a god-like, or a god versus a ghost, so the sense of there are these really solid
rangsimgi and Dedongi Ishi Nye Deagi and Rangjung Ishi Tigi and Tunan Tigi the Samalo, Jomba Chigres, Carson Dedongi Ishi Chigre de Yarwa, or that tender with Davachamu Ishi Tigi and Motela Namdo Tan and Landre Tantigi the Samalo and Pat Doba Chabayinza, Rangdro Sams, that's some money taned Tirets. They are tasking a Dunjishana. Jizumela Revalaya, and a tragic pig Tsunadina Ripana Pigalia Tadela, me sote sorgi denye, Jigden, Jizungitan did Kanza Jidua, Riti Kanza Jidua, a Tinde Gonindu, and Nimakashe Jelcomone, but Mose Toruchi, Yonzuchine, Jizungi Chitelia, and a pet that Shanan Sabuchi, dress and I'm doing the chunju. And Sanyan Nayan Cocheru Churchy. And in Yamatilla called Jig Tamai, Ni Sum Shimaruchi. And it is doing bed those Doctor Gigte and wrote 9 called Gamoshaje. Gigte and had Romartas. Ah, that Karan Gumonet and Tongwani Tawada, Karina Chigomna, and Nadogo Matoji, Chitin and Nadogomar Talan, Tatuya Nala Pumang Buchi, Iotas, Cotindig Ladua, Jizumilla Reve. This simple kind of manga tindiji, Ningi Italian, Dama poverty chungs, than a ticket to woman do mother, Ningi Dama poverty chungs, or Tindis Church, Tamonet Ranshime, Tower Talent, Bebegi, Tower Tato Titone, and Ladan Reda singing the Tamalo, Ranking Mangi Shidrachi, what in you go to Husin, what in the Sund or Tinza, Namdolam Gerson or Tere.
So Rinpoche says, well, the text goes on to say that we distinguish between this is a god, this is a godly being, this is a ghostly, this is a ghostly being. So actually, well, this is just a mistaken appearance, and therefore we need to dissolve everything into the wisdom of the great bliss. We have to absorb it into great bliss, realizing emptiness. So therefore, this has a great meaning, this understanding of phenomena actually just arising from this self-arisen wisdom or self-arisen primordial wisdom, and also disappearing within or dissolving back into it in that sense. So we don't need all these external measures like these, well, external measures in the sense of applying protective wheels, doing these meditative rituals, going through these rituals of generating a protective wheel and a Vajra fence and so forth. So it's really just coming from our own mind. And Rinpoche said, well, there's also, in particular here, when talking about concepts, taking concepts as the path. So when you're in retreat, well, the goal is, of course, to generate the wisdom that is a union of great bliss and emptiness. However, then although you're trying to keep other people away, but your mind just goes outside, your mind travels, your mind is distracted, and that which shouldn't arise, which are expectations, worries, and so forth, well, they all arise. So what can you do at that time? Actually, you need to eliminate them from the point of view of allowing them to absorb into the self-arisen wisdom, that they basically dissolve into it. It's just from the perspective, it's just from the vantage point of this this wisdom. Well, these phenomena don't actually exist. Be aware of them, that they're creations of our own mind. And it's by understanding their lack of inherent existence, by focusing on emptiness, we can understand that they don't exist in such a way. So we basically empower these different appearances, giving them more of a reality, more of a solidity than they basically have. And so there's this story also of Milarepa, for instance, Milarepa, who was meditating in a remote place, and as he was looking at this wall of as he was looking on the opposing, like other face, or like a rock face on the opposite side, there was a rock formation that looked like a huge ghost, like some kind of scary being. And so as he looked at it, over time, he had a sense there really was this scary kind of individual looking at him, and it grew more vivid as he continued to meditate, as he continued to look at it. I mean, doing his practice, but at the same time also watching this kind of rock formation, and it grew bigger and it grew clearer, and eventually it started to look so real that at some point it was like it was appearing right next to him, and then it started multiplying, this kind of ghost-like being. So due to his different concepts, his discursive thoughts, they just solidified this appearance. It became stronger and stronger. And he was totally scared, and he started to engage, he started to perform a kind of ritual which removes obstacles. It's a kind of tantric ritual of removing any kind of obstacles. And the ghost-like being next to him just started laughing. He said, "This is not going to chase me away at all." So the only thing
le tambo ro chi kabli ina ne nyomo chadang lo chi ke yundu tende be chadang lo ti gi chase yu chidar chasu ane digi ti le ya ane cheba cheyum be kabla ane tawe to ne cheba cheyum be kabla ane chumi ji lo ti ane chidar sunga ta to me de yenge o tinde gi namsha ti lamsang nge be chen tema ta du nyomo rangsar shi ro ya ji yede ha ji o ti indu yomo lamjersne tinde menro ngatni samgudo da tine da dingse tombo tobe dingse tombo ya le yumbe kabla inane ane tanda jojo namsumsne treje joba treme gi joba shindu treme gi joba sne sewa korgu joba no sumse yore o ti kaptele ya ane de tigi de changmallo ane gyendu mandro gyendu ya toba jewe gyendu ya ji o tinde si yungu yore ko tinde si yung tuya gi 시대인데 가르르스나 라발루부 시아바 되게 될래야 르죄와 마임바 신도 차외 시아바지게 돈에 냠래 제윤도 라발루부에 실라샤베 토네 남유 개와다 딕바다세 디기도 상말로 디 라발레 데네 다베티 지 신도 차외 디 토네 외세기 셈 디기 에네 독차네 대동기 이시 디 토네 남유 라발루부와기 딕바 첩첨볼 줘야 돼야 텐다바텔라 안 초 자첨부 소야기 깬리야 노투야지 예데바 어 두스레 텐데 인도 남유 nga qabla menda nga ji sebe tu nang shin jidan tu sengende shidroya ga jala ji res di peje dan so cheya ga nyanga yedeba ji res yine ya te menda jari yundu chiwe jiwa 첨부 ji de kyap tuya ga neba ji yungo ya menda nga ji sebe tu dabul o den ru yusad o den nyomong lamje to bo tombol len den yusar sung dus.
So Milarepa then at that time, what happened was, well, this ghost kind of being, it said, well, this won't help me. What will really help is the view of emptiness. So our mind just has different aspects, it just manifests in different ways. And what Milarepa did was, well, he took these instructions, I mean, this remark made by this ghost, and he felt this was so helpful because it reminded him of the fact that, well, phenomena are mere appearances of our own mind. They're like waves of our own mind in the sense that they lack inherent existence. And he himself said, well, this is a pith instruction that was given to me by this being that appeared to Milarepa, that I will keep at the center of my heart. I will keep this in the middle or in the center of my heart. The fact that phenomena, well, they don't exist inherently. We should remind ourselves, therefore, as part of taking the concepts into the path, to remember that nothing exists solidly as it appears, that phenomena are appearances to our mind, but they lack inherent existence. Then Rinpoche continued explaining now the second line, again, as part of the 6 cycles of equal taste. Taking afflictions as the path. Now here Rinpoche says, taking afflictions as the path, there are different levels we need to consider. A person, like a beginner, for instance, versus a person on a high spiritual level who's attained high realizations. Now for a beginner, what is helpful is when attachment arises, when aversion arises, with regard to the object, for instance, we attach with regard to the way we attach to the object, if we start to analyze it, if we start to analyze what is actually happening, what is happening when we're attached, what is happening when there's aversion, applying the view of emptiness, then it'll become clear that our afflictive emotions are affected by the exaggerating attitude, this mind that perceives phenomena to be inherently positive or inherently negative and so forth, exaggerating its positive or negative aspects. And once we analyze that, then this extreme perception of things based on our misapprehension of reality, it will naturally subside. So just analyzing in particular this extreme attitude, or what is called the inappropriate attitude. So that could be helpful for a beginner, for instance. Then on the other hand, a person who's attained a very high state, who's attained high realizations. So especially in the case of a tantric practitioner, you have all these different practices of like elaboration, free from elaboration, completely free from, or very much free, or completely free from elaboration, and so forth. And all those practices can help us
ngal dinde ke naza chi chungde khande chi ina nga naza dine tharo chenas ane lula naza yoba tige thola semle ya dungen chi gi naza de mesebe dungen chi gi ane lusem ni gal kangen ji yode chi ta ji jiri lojong gi nyamle chacheng gi nyamle dinde chi gi nyamle chi gi ngene naza chi chungba ina ya ane naza tigi ta lula ya midewa chik tenden yungu yorite semgi nane ane kenge ane gewe kumal ya roya chiki ta ngone tane nge chik chena nasa digi nga legu marta ta nga nima chingi le mate na ya nge ti nyingbu lentab chik che samba chiki ane sosi ti tone chanju sem nyi jongya ki tabli ya tagi ane duks chi beso che ya ta nge kiawa ngoma namsu dagi ngonje semchen lan dindawa ya neba che 대 semchen sejewa dala neba di jungri sini ta ngar kiawa thongwa meba ni semchen shenla neba di dan di chawa chigi dribula tene ta ngala naza dinde chigi neba dinde chi chungba di ngome lengengi dribu chi ten re kanda yu meba ni zane yawa ma re o dinde inza ta ngosa lengen sayagi ta tabchi re samba chigi o di chene sem dewa chene deya ta gyusen sumba draba tele ya ngale kyan dile 네 나자들이 충주를 닐레견 자자 체외기 나자나니 심지 지다 친이지요 다 되게 강자 삼을지다 뒤주 고등에 최버쇼 삼으로 어 딘데 토네 개와 빠도 매버사야 동래 빠도 그래서 동래기 냠랭기 토네 개와 빠도 매버 루투야 어 딘데 승인데 나살람게 간다 나는 나기 열에 루부딜때 나는 나차르 다 나자 등원에 타네기 샘기베기 차게 초소베기 차게 어 딘데직 충분 있나 단주 딱간 밀루기 닝볼렘베기 차게 딘데직 충분 있나 나살람게 뭐네래 어다 동해람게 대다 찍고 찍자래 한델람게 승인데 뒤다부지래 하단데다 딘데직 너바 신나 사부지 중소나 어 뒤두걸라 아니 그래 다 이내야 따다 시다 망밀레스나 라케즈이나 라케브체 징투야 네바이는 징투야제 징무토나 트야레 마토지 딜람게이 돈도지
So there are too many different ways in which to utilize this practice. So basically, if you practice like a tantric practitioner, they engage in, their mind has reached, usually if they practice like a very deep level, like in the sense of the subtlest types of mind, they become manifest, and they're no longer utilizing, or as part of their practice, they're able to dissolve the coarser types of mind. And in that case, it's very different. I mean, if you're able to utilize the subtler levels of your mind, then what is ordinarily perceived as non-virtue, for instance, is not necessarily non-virtuous. Why? Because it's the force of the mind, which in the case of the union of bliss and emptiness, well, ordinarily it would be a certain action could be greatly non-virtuous, but it can be transformed into the path in the sense that it can become extremely virtuous. So this is like, this is explained usually on the basis of saying, well, you can take poison and transform it into medicine. transforming any kind of poisonous substance, and instead of harming you, it becomes like a type of medicine that instead benefits you, which means that kind of ordinarily, for an ordinary person, non-virtuous actions or certain non-virtuous states of mind can be used for a highly advanced practitioner in such a way that these non-virtuous states of mind, these afflictive emotions, can be transformed. The actions that go along with them, but also the states of mind themselves, can be transformed in such a way that they become part of one's practice and are highly beneficial. Then the next line, or the next part of the six cycles, or the next cycle of the equal taste, is taking sickness as the path. Now, ordinarily, when we talk about sickness, well, if we're not practitioners, if someone doesn't practice the Dharma, they may wonder, why do I get sick? And I hope, may I soon get better. And not only do they suffer physically due to the illness itself, due to pain and so forth, but also mentally they suffer having this illness. So there are mental problems that arise as well. While on the other hand, a person who has listened to the Dharma, has studied the Dharma, and puts it into practice, well, this is a situation where when they are able, well, by getting sick, they are able to think, well, this is just natural that I'll get unsick. I mean, I'll get unwell. This is totally normal to get sick. It's just part of life, and they're much more accepting of what happens to them. They utilize this disease in such a way that it doesn't upset them in any way, but instead they turn it around. They turn it around in such a way that they make it part of their own practice to strengthen their bodhicitta, their compassion, and so forth. And also, when Rinpoche gave a quote here, they consider the fact, as it's expressed in this quote, well, whatever negativity occurs, whatever harm that I receive in the form of disease and so forth, well, that is the result of karma accumulated in the past, so of harming other sentient beings in the past. So may this ripen upon me due to my previously accumulated karma. Therefore, to take into consideration the fact that there's always a cause. It's not the case. It's not the case that phenomena arise or experiences such as having a disease and illness, that they arise without a cause. Well, everything has a cause, and one cause are definitely the negative actions we accumulated in the past. So to consider also the law of karma. And something else, another aspect of dealing with disease, of taking it into the path, is to consider the fact, well, I'm just one person. I'm not so precious. And if I get sick, that's okay. I mean, there's so many other sentient beings who are sick, and due to the multitude of sentient beings, their suffering is a lot worse because they're
지단전의 동해생이 견레스 뭐가 잘라지레스 이내야 냠len 징에 지금 거네 동해 때에서 충분히나 아니 교회께제 아니 지 나게다 특버도서 좀 그래서 교회 특버세바치스 아니 코와 생gen들 단 근데 교인지 도스는 코와 발라 닝제께스 아니 소소야 딕발점 개발라지알 아니 배전지알 꾸마용을 딕라점시 갈라가스 어떠저 직도 왔어 근데 단달라만 쳐배는 한들남제는 깨져 시합에 있나스 조와시단 덴베 탐케기스 조와시 소사와 지바장다 테란데 남주 다가래 다 되네 중고라 떨마땅 최경라 천에 줘스 나란즈이나 체르마쇼 내 매바지 용하쇼 안 중고라 떨마땅 안 최경 천에 줘 도스러스 다 배트 독초 체제 다 단단한 걸 너버 담을 용도 다동이나 너버 땅슈 예 냠내는 팽기도 너버 양교 땅슈 지 나자 양교 축체로 땅슈 안 된데스 제제 인 중보라 또마다 천내를 적용을 천내 줘스 된데 제버스 그저 다 한들람게 동행람게 나잘람게 생긴 두전한 두두도저레스.
So to consider the fact that there are a lot more other sentient beings, and them getting sick their problem is much worse than my own problem, and may all their problems ripen upon me. So to apply to engage in the practice of what's called Tonglen, to give away all my well-being by the breath carrying or visualizing as you breathe in, as you breathe out, to give all your well-being, all your happiness to others, and you take on the suffering of other sentient beings. And in that way, practicing when you're sick, practicing such a way, you make your disease very meaningful. You turn it around in such a way that you can accumulate a lot of merit. So thinking that, well, I've got a human body, I'm so lucky to have this body, and of course there'll be problems. I mean, just the fact that I'm born in samsara, what do I expect? Of course, suffering will arise. And so based on that kind of acceptance of the situation we're in, we can turn it around and benefit greatly from this disease. But Rinpoche is saying, well, but that doesn't mean, I'm not saying when there's some kind of danger approaching you, or when soldiers are kind of chasing you in order to kill you, you should not run away. Oh no, I'm taking it all into the path, just kill me, just torture me. That's not what this means. So Rinpoche was laughing. That's not the meaning of this at all. You should, of course, protect yourself when you can protect yourself and so forth, and escape danger if possible. Then Rinpoche continued saying, well, there's also this aspect of the practice of like practitioners, like real practitioners. Well, we're born in samsara. They have the sense that we're born in cyclic existence. And suffering is not a problem. It's okay. There is going to be suffering, but I can use it. I can utilize it to strengthen my disgust with cyclic existence, so to generate stronger. Okay, here you read it again. I missed it again. Okay. Never mind, I missed the quote. There's going to be a quote from the Lama Chöpa, which fortunately I don't have right in front of me. But the point is, it goes on to say, went on to say, well, we can utilize it to generate disgust for the samsara, that is, generate renunciation. At the same time, remove our arrogance, kind of lessen our arrogance when they're suffering, generate compassion. It gives us the opportunity to generate compassion and work harder, to be determined, because there is suffering, I have to work harder. So in that way, there are many different ways in which you can practice. And in the Lama Chöpa, in the Guru Puja, it also talks about these 4 applications of accumulating merit, of purifying negativities, of making dharma offerings, and in terms of the Dharma protectors, I think he said requesting them and so forth. Anyway, there are these different practices that you can do, but the practices, the way you do them here, it's not to remove obstacles and so forth. How you apply them in such a way that you say, may I get sick? May other sentient beings harm me? Because that gives me the opportunity to practice harder. So to not run away from suffering, but to welcome it, understanding that suffering can actually help us, and suffering can be beneficial in ways previously described. They can strengthen our compassion, they can strengthen our determination, our understanding of samsara, and so forth.
치와 시자 남도 인 체브레 다 ngamra che gwa ji yamar de namdo so shab chala chires chiwa sin ngamra che o karere sinas number shebe gyunti lubudi nan ya shu yundu lubudi ze dinale shu yundu kyawa sin chebres lubu ze dinane ko kaga ando kabla en chiwa sa tabres number shebe gyunti ne gagmares o lubudi nan ya nezan yabada in nezane par drawing surgeries daji drawing motati savaji da nyeshabati nimba chaje and ko jabu jabe surgeries o ta choba jigun ngone shebeina and nezan jiglia shen jiglia boy surgeries tinde inza chiwa sangende ngone thane chen ngamra che tanga meba chadu du sambe ngamra chegwa de tinde tane yamares o chiwa lamjesne o teje koyaji do ati damba denjarwa te damba denjare da tine chiwalamje tele kyan ting sabru ma chimbayina o ta nyere shindu bede chiwa chugu da sesen bede tongba nigi tawa gomne o dos cheji jungwa timring tuzu samdanje o tinde che yindu ta ngone shiwe kalula mitsu ina ngamra cheya de kadula tinde nyamle chinyen kuyo ngone bede lamjirimbe nyamlengi ane jongdar cheya de ta ngus tengangeli ya jongdar cheshabate ngus langlen tigandri ya keyaji yedayaji o dindu chiwalam jengone ta laml kebat chik tenden re ani ta 다동야 드네파 띵 서로 치마이나 치바티 베이웨세 강리야치 ወሰንወ네 강치 디기 주구테라 아니 바도 투야 삽달라 아니 롱두제 아니 강다 디텔 초웅두냐지 예데바 두조 강다 치월람제 사야등원에 차글와 어떤래 야르모모도와 어떤데래
Rinpoche said, well, actually, with all the explanation Rinpoche has given so far, well, that explains taking concepts into the path, taking affliction as the path, taking sicknesses as the path, taking gods and demons as the path, and taking sufferings as the path. Now, what is left to explain is taking death as the path. Now, taking death as the path, well, there are different explanations with regard to that. Well, first of all, some would say that there is no actual death. I mean, what we consider to be a death is not really death as such, because what is it that we call death? We talk about our mental continuum. Our mental continuum, first of all, when this mental continuum kind of enters or connects with the ovum of our parents, then we describe it as conception. We talk of conception. However, when this basis that started with the fertilized ovum, well, when that physical basis and the mind, the mental continuum, when they separate, that's what we call death. But it seems to apply, and then we say death, it's over in the sense of the mental continuum ceasing, and that is not the case. I mean, the mental continuum always goes on. There is no death in the sense that there's ever an end to the mental continuum. Therefore, in a sense, it's like there's no actual death. There's only a change of accommodation, if you like. So Rinpoche says it's like when you move to a new apartment. Dying is like moving to a new apartment, moving to a new house, changing rooms, if you like, or if you buy a new car. So previously you had one car that took you from one place to the other, and then the car got too old, you had to get rid of it, and you bought a new car. So getting a new body is a bit like that. Like getting a new car, moving to a new house, but the mental continuum cannot be stopped. The mental continuum always goes on. So in a way, it's kind of like death it's like an illusion. That's one aspect to consider. But with something else that needs to be considered, and this is with regard to practitioners who've reached a certain level on the path. Now, they use their life to prepare for death in such a way that they engage on a daily basis in these practices of visualizing their own death. And in that way, then mentally go through the different stages of absorption when the coarse mind slowly dissolve and the coarse level of mind dissolve into subtler types of mind. And they just go through this by way of their visualization. They just visualize this happening in order to prepare for death. So for them, death is the time when what they previously visualized, they can now directly experience. So it's like this time when anything that all these meditative practices will now come to fruition in the sense that they will now directly experience, and whatever they have previously visualized, they're so familiar with now that they can now have a very vivid experience of their own death and utilize it in a positive way. So that's one aspect of for a practitioner to use death in a very positive way, and then to go even subtler from the point of view of a person who's reached the highest kind of stage of practice.
amanasna asat gaksiche manasat yiche amanasna yilemejes o manasna yiche asa gakzinze yilemejes ta digi dal changbe kyang chejing di de chingru shi gone dendes ta 가장 아란츠기 착전 곰당기 니레 그 곰자야기 레센티나나 당보sem기 시자제바스 니바sem기 샤탑템바스 수다 숨바sem기 고사제바티 마 숨바티 마 깨샤나 리도와 시바sem기 람케르템바사야디 야키우나 리도와 sem기 람케르디 아니 동초당 엔 낭초기 어디 털어야 낭동 디 타기 녜게지 셰데 들어와 다디 킥스 폰동이 담발라 아니 징화체나 아니 고바체나 딘데르야 타기 게제셰송 어디 숨박 sem기 고사제바스 디레다 디체니 강다르 차정 고메깔라 딱 sem기 시자제바스에도 고메악 때와 그래 sem기 중내 로승 창서네 셈세장 릭잠디 아니 개체중 지기 토네 아니 대각 코레 토리아 독스제 곰 델리아 다 군조브 셈 토네 고메아치도 디가나 따토를 잔네 고메아치도 독스제네 담보성기 시자제바스 니바성기 샤탑템 바성겐들라 아니 샤탑 족들에 야주 준비 진신샤 칼남간 딩시샤스 어떠저래 자중 칼 딩시샤스인데 데레 다 되네 셈기 람케르템 바스네 된데 샤성게 핑게 말에 디간데 딱코 가린고 똥보다 땡중이기 아니 네티 아니 직로스 직로야 직 토라 아니 캐르토야 직 어디 람케르템 아니 디 킥세 폰돌라 아니 칭화 채나 고바 채나 스노 도스레 단디 단다 도도간 랩송스
And then on an even subtler level, a person who has reached the kind of final stage of their practice, well, at the moment of death, they generate first the illustrative clear light mind or the exemplary clear light mind, then afterwards the actual
다딩가 야고질라야 민두다 다 걔랑 집에 인자 카두 땅아래 전제로 집에 있나 아니 셈 코란래야 이네 미바테네 아니 셈기 니규다 텐델이야 아니 제수 민로야
그래서
유아 강당 강 판도야 추도 도서 강가 빼티 야메나 센터스체 야메나 셈 코란가 팀체 도스체네 일레메 제바스 근데 인그레스상도 야 이네 타기 티바질질 차제 좀 곰두메 세치 두다
لا الملاحظة مقبلة
so if a person therefore at the time of death they utilize the death mind the death mind, which is the clear light mind of death. First they generate the illustrative clear light mind and then the actual clear light mind. And when the clear light mind when they arise from that clear light mind, well, they arise in the form actually what they would arise to, as would be as a Jhado being, but instead, because of their practice, they now arise as the Sambhogakaya. And in that way, they attain the supreme spiritual accomplishment, which is Buddhahood, which means, in other words, they utilize their death to become enlightened. Or this is the last stage of their being a sentient being. The next moment they're enlightened. Then Rinpoche went on to read the 4 letters. As for the 4-lettered, it says its explanation is drawn from the etymology of the word amanasi. So Rinpoche explained, A is it implies a negation. In the Sanskrit word A, it implies that something is negated. Mani means mind, mana means mind, man means mind, and then nasi means not engaging. I mean, that's what I would translate, not engage. the mind. So, which is Sanskrit for non-mentation. That's how Geshe Thupten Jinpa would translate. So, no mental engagement activity, however you want to call it. And its meaning is shown by way of the words 4 letters. Thus, the first is cutting the mind's root basis. The second, Ma, shows the method for resting the mind. The third, Na, cuts off the mind's erroneous forces. And the fourth shows how to take the mind into the path. Now, as to the meaning of, as Rinpoche put it, Rinpoche used the Tibetan word Yilamit, which basically means to stop the mental engagement. And Venerable Katsun asked Rinpoche, what does that actually mean? Just a second. Oh, sorry, that actually comes a little later. So first of all, Rinpoche said, well, as I explained before, so now with regard to the practice of Mahamudra, having read this part, so as to the practice of Mahamudra, you remember there were different outlines that Rinpoche mentioned. The first outline being determining the basis, the foundation, which is the mind itself. Thereafter, demonstrating how to rest the mind. Remember, we went through this. Rinpoche said yesterday the different methods by which you can rest the mind. There are different methods. Rinpoche said 6, but actually mentioned 5. So the point is, so these different methods here. So the sky, like the Garuda bird, that's like the mind being like a Garuda bird that soars in the sky, or being like waves of an ocean and so forth. So like being an ocean. And so therefore, these are the different ways to rest the mind. And thereafter, Rinpoche also explained how to, and he went through it in his text today when he read the text at the very beginning of the session, how to deal with excitement, how to deal with laxity and so forth.
야기면은 차르래 어디래 엔 다람 주네 엔 계시가 사무래 엔 체제 몽구시래 어딘데 토네 소수수기 특히 남의 나조치 토네 엔 녀야지 연구요래 엔 캐난서 데 고딘나nye 에네 퉁규르자nye 에 기규를 레갈레nye 참말로 투지체 엔 마세베지 캐난서 두렵 뉴스자지원 잠린 초보지기 룽바지래 들라차고 옆에 룽바지래 뒤에 떼인제 아니 니마 가시 지그런 걸 배들라가 강한 잠시 안에 도나지 녀바 들려야 녀가 배워 들려야 투체스 쉐.
So anyway, there are these different methods that Rinpoche described. And of course, you also, what is described, how to apply the path. So that's another outline. So in other words, determining the basis, then the different methods of resting the mind, how to deal with obstacles, and of course, applying the path. So in this case, for instance, taking the practice into the path by way of reflecting on the emptiness of the mind, the dependent arising of the mind, how these two assist each other, and so forth. So all this is being explained. And most important is actually the first outline, the first step, which is determining from the point of view of the conventional level and from the point of view of the ultimate level, what is that mind? So how does it conventionally exist? How does it ultimately exist? And then Venerable Katsun briefly asked, well, what does it mean, this mental engagement? Stop mental engagement, what does that actually mean? Rinpoche says he himself is not sure about it. It's difficult to really pinpoint it. So his opinion is basically that you observe an object, but the movement of the mind, in other words, of going here and there, that may stop in that situation when there's no mental engagement. Anyway, then at the very end, Rinpoche says, well, this is the end of it. We've come to the end of these these teachings, and Rinpoche will leave it at having read this last part of the text and continue in the future again. And he would like to thank everyone. He's made new friends, he's met many old friends, and he's very happy about that. And
ngus ngaran la ya keran la tinde la le ya bu yungu duwe la ba ina kale kha tha chi re ngaran susu rani le chu te ba ina kale kha tha chi re re de ta laksam ji ne shenben chi shebal nanga yu gi mare ta kandar ngaran chu gi nang chu di jang be shu de la kyamro lende chamba ninje chanju gi sem tongba ni tu so ke chi mo re da sne ta kadu pe ji ji nyen ba ina Jana bibi nyamba ina phejer tinande reshe ti yungu yore tinde indu ta ti nyamleng zole kia chigda ti nyamleng khibati miche ene gyundeng gi chegoda ane takta lalen ya duksche rothuya chi thola ene besana ya de kechum shigu imares tinde chungba ina che ne du sumba tares
So Rinpoche
And Rinpoche said, well, so basically, also he would like to thank Gama Katsun, Venerable Gama Katsun, the Hebrew translator, for the people who were right there. It was helpful to receive the teachings. And then for those online, he wants to thank the Russian translator in Katsan. And so he wants to thank all the organizers who made this possible, who coordinated Rinpoche's visit. And of course, he would also like to thank those who took time out of their busy schedule. So knowing that Israel, being a modern country, people are very busy, they have jobs and so forth, and still people took the time to attend here and attend these teachings, and so Rinpoche wants to thank them. And then he went on to say, well, sometimes when you're asked, what is the experience you got? What did you get out of this teaching? It's sometimes difficult to say, what is it exactly? So of course, in terms of the altruistic kind of attitude, generating that, all that is very important. But Rinpoche feels that of everything we learned, it's important to take with you what we talked about. So refuge, the law of karma, to take that into consideration. But most important are also compassion, bodhicitta, altruism. These are really important. So even when you receive a jenang, if you receive a blessing, at that time when that is mentioned, it's just worth it for that to hear about.
And Jigda got Jignetana Lele Wongi Chungwe search. Kandan Rasa Timado made the research. You less Sangajil Denny Chung the research. Inaya Lere Sati, just Meva Rebesna, just Meva Zani Mandevich. That thing a Lunga Dill and Pet Pembo Chungsons. Monetana Lunga Dilla, Jitan Chatan search red once. Me Yingdo the Zujung Tone, Rishina Suesha. ngopse da tinde tamni sosu lungbal ya be chasan dangwan zamdo mase chilo la ya pha ene ba chongjur chiya export chitoya o tigeti karare o le res ne kujo jaw kyun ma jaw che de shab chi gi tigeti chungma ma harabas o le de re chatan chi lungbana la ya ne go ya chi le chi re de sosu be zen che ne ani jukchun chambo chetoya ji ngone hansa ya ji do so dit ngone le ya and go there is in Shaya made the Chigi, till Bezun Chaji, the Donald Chaji, ye the Chi, or Tinde Imbe Chane, Kandar, and Lumba de la Chasha in ya, she Kandaka, Nizu Chumba in there, the leg on the Chumba the red and le Telia, Donland Cheje, le Telia, Sambe Choli, Jutabki, Tapshe Kayonche. Sangbe choli gyurtabgi tabshe tenya ane chi shen singindi kandar nyamdo salon cheje 사자 찌리야 냠도 돼 사자 찌리야 냠도 롱체네 미식개고야 찍대 단 로타 가서 들 요 땅타 매대버지 딘데 지기 토라 에네 신네 에네 지 잠바세로 닝제세로 어째와세로 어떻게 되기 지원에 타내기 지 배주디 라랭모스카베 토네 가세 투두기 참두다 가세 투두기 냠루다 가세 투두기 자세다 딘데가 털이야 엔내야 털어 쳐바랑 거네 누버튼 그 연내래 누버튼 그 매나래 라라스성네 딘데지 강 투두 제샤가 있나 소소라에 개와요 지조라에 팬데여도 수수 누베 강아 강삼지기 샴디지야 루투고요 신뱅 어떤데지 랭 같은데 삼게여스 딘데 인자 lumbadelia canso chi thag chu tes ye de chi ten de nyo da ye de je de anen maranzo nambe chebe ngene sam tin chi na ya bo yores nge kuma shu yos
Now, even if you just hear about when you receive a jhana, for instance, one of the most important aspects are the explanations on love and compassion and so forth. So this is one of the most important practices that you should take with you. This is one of the most important message that I want you to take with you and to bring into your daily life, to actually put this into practice. So love, compassion, affection, all this altruism, this is what you need to practice, because then your behavior has come down to the essence of the Dharma. The most significant aspect of the Dharma, you've hit that, you've strike that. If that's what you do, you've really turned the Dharma into Dharma in that way. That is important to practice. And so, of course, it's important to understand that our experience as well, we get sick in this world. There are a lot of diseases, there are wars, there are conflicts. Yes, that is true. There are a lot of problems in this way. And of course, they're the result of karma, of our karmic actions of the past. There's no other way than our experiences being the result of karma. But does that mean we cannot change the situation we find ourselves in? Of course we can. We can make changes. It doesn't mean we're caught in karma and we can no longer move and we're paralyzed by our situation and should just accept it. No, the example of how you can change situations is Israel itself, this country where people move to. It's a desert. I mean, you moved into a desert and you turned it around. This desert land, you changed it. You got together. You created these communities and then started to cultivate the land, to grow vegetables, to grow produce that you can now sell to other countries, you export to other countries. So you've turned it around. Although you found yourself in such a situation that a country was, you moved into a country that was originally a desert, you were able to turn it around. So you worked hard and you made something from it. You made an effort. You really made an effort to change around this. So in a way, this karmic situation you found yourself in, well, you changed it into something positive. You transported, you faced the situation as it is, and then turned it around. But not just for your own benefit, but also for the benefit of other sentient beings. And we need to consider the fact when it comes to other beings we live in, living with other people in this country, that we all have to live together. We cannot change that. So different people of different cultures and so forth coming together, we can't change that. So then being in this situation, we should generate love, we should generate compassion, affection, and we have to apply these mental factors to other sentient beings, even if there's sometimes trouble, to generate harmony in society, to get closer to each other, to become friends, to develop friendships. So that is really important. This is really, we have the potential to do so. We all have the potential to do so. And if we apply these factors, love, compassion, and so forth, and grow and work towards a more harmonious and more harmonious society and build friendship between the different people of this country, well, we benefit ourselves and we benefit others. So the benefit is twofold. Therefore, we in this way, we give a service to society. And yes, their conflicts, yes, their problems and so forth. But it's important to apply these Buddhist concepts. And as a Buddhist, that's what I'm saying. What I feel is very good to apply it in such a way, to work with the conflict and to apply altruism in such a way, to be of service to other sentient beings, to help other sentient beings and so forth. So to make the best out of the situation and in that way, practice accordingly. So Rinpoche felt that was important to say. I'm sorry I raced through it so quickly. I just wanted to say everything Rinpoche said.
Tonda Druba Tamandruba Kecha Maris, Tonda Drubai, Chawa Sambol, Tonda Drubai Yungre, Chawa Sambol, Tonda Mandrubaya Yungre, Chawa Gimbale Tagare, that's all the Kuno La Rale, Kuno Ti, or Randun Yicho Maimba, Chicho da, Champagne da, Tindechi, Samnochi Tone, Gune Lane, Letuchi Leshaba Tigi, and Legati, Tar Sambuchi Tone, Tunde Sambu Chumba in the Indi. Tumde 상부지 맞춤바 있느냐 디 노르메바 가르스는 공로 상부지기 돈을 들어와 임바 딘데지기 돈 공로 멤버지기 돈에 tumde 상부지 충대 여바 있느냐 그 자와 상봉원에를 베스 깨지티비나 리부트 상부지 충할 때 공로때 교교지 여르다스네 도스 체제 그 공원에 심주 체바 있나 디 자와 상봉관을 딱딱 지금 로메바 딘데지기 공로 상의 돈에 라리게 여대바 딘데지기 토네 마란주 남배 최바지기 3년 토네 강당 강 있나야 지조다 샴페인기 삼노디 랍체지기 토네 아니 같이 투두기 아니 배전체 자와데 아니 지 제베이나 디 돈다 루바이 용스그레 돈다 만루 날랑 잡아치는 매대버지레스 마틴데 로기우스
We talk about positive or negative actions. Well, if it's positive or negative, what does that depend on? It doesn't depend on the outcome. It's not like an action that has a positive outcome is necessarily a positive action. An action that has a negative outcome is necessarily has a negative outcome. No, it all depends on the motivation. The motivating force that is responsible for then the enactment of a particular action. So if then, let's say the motivation is positive, well, the outcome of the action can be positive, it can be negative, but that is also true for a negative motivation. If you apply a negative, if you generate a negative motivation and you perform a certain action, well, the outcome can be positive or negative. But motivation, a positive action is really as just said, so it's a positive motivation that precedes it. And it is a kind of motivation that is not based on self-centeredness, but on a view that is concerned for society, concerned with the society, that wishes to benefit others. So that should be the motivation. And then even if the result, well, if that leads to an action, the result of which, or the outcome of which is not that great, it's not a problem. It's not a problem because it is a virtuous action. It's a positive action. If, on the other hand, your motivation was negative, based on self-centeredness and so forth, even if the outcome of the action that was motivated by a negative motivation, well, even if the outcome is positive, it was not a positive action because the motivation was skewed. So Rinpoche used a kind of funny word, kind of the skewed, in Tibetan. So anyway, therefore Rinpoche says it's important to generate this this altruistic kind of attitude, to want to benefit others, to really make an effort, towards being more altruistic, being kind, being loving, and to work hard for the benefit of other sentient beings. And then what the result is, never mind. Most important is the motivation.
zamling nuti zamling shala tene digi chogo yore o tene ji sharnu yongzo lo phazu tene ina ta thomba kimze de lungba yen la de tende ji tendu tudu gra shin be chane ane manzu kyonzo sa tende member ji kase tudu gi ane ji sewe tone nyamru o tende tolya ka nyenye cheya ji da doden nyingbo sosorani 이 차단기 상황기 배 샘축되바 마인바 같이 투두지기 장바다 닝제곰네 샘되버서야 아니 텐디 투두 삼단에 샘되버서야 렌데 삼단에 샘되버서야 아니 샘되버서야 캡산스를 여러 라니리 여러 샘기버 캡산레스 나틴데 시에 카데버 차소스
ומעבר לזה גם אנחנו מכירים בכך.
So if we consider, so therefore Rinpoche says, well, we will achieve, even if we will not achieve a positive outcome, if our motivation is right, it doesn't matter. It's most important that we have the right motivation. And then Rinpoche continued saying, well, also it's important to consider dependent arising, interdependence of phenomena. Our happiness, our well-being is dependent on others. So if you think of the eastern parts of the world are dependent on the western parts and the western parts on the eastern parts. So the well-being of the world is dependent on other parts of the world. So certain parts are dependent on other parts. And if that's the case, well, then neighbors are dependent on each other. Villages are dependent on each other. These people are dependent on those people, etc. Therefore, we shouldn't distinguish us and them, not to draw this distinction between groups of people, to draw this distinction, us versus them, and so forth. Instead, we should really put into practice love, compassion, and so forth. So in essence, therefore, in essence, what Rinpoche would like to summarize by kind of saying, well, let yourself not be disturbed by the afflictions such as attachment and aversion. Don't let yourself be controlled by them. Instead, let yourself be driven by love and compassion. Practice love and compassion. Practice compassion for others. Practice karma and taking refuge and so forth. Put these into practice to really apply them. Practice dependent arising. So on the basis of the practice of love, the practice of dependent arising, the practice of karma, in that way you will feel better. If you serve yourself, you will be able to bring about your own well-being. So those are a few words Rinpoche wanted to eloquently share with you. It's like, yeah. So Rinpoche says that was the kind of sweet talking I wanted to give you at the end. He used this word like kadebo, like I wanted to sweet talk you into this. So we recite a mandala offering as Thanksgiving, a long mandala. Oh, adamantine ground, Ahom, mighty golden ground, Om, adamantine circumference, Ahom. Outside, it is encircled by the circumferential wall, in the center of which are Sumeru, king of mountains, the eastern continent, Videha, the southern, Jambudvita, the western, Godania, the northern, Kuru, Dea and Videha, Kamara and Apara Kamara, Shatan, Uttara, Manche, Kuru and Galvara, the precious mountain, the wish-granting tree, the wish-fulfilling cow, the unplowed harvest, the precious wheel, the precious jewel, the precious queen, the precious minister, the precious elephant, the precious horse, the precious general, the vase of great treasure, lady of grace, lady of garlands, lady of song, lady of dance, lady of flowers, lady of incense, lady of lamps, lady of perfumes, the sun, the moon, the precious parasol, the banner of victory in all quarters in the center, the most perfect riches of gods and human beings, with nothing missing, pure and delightful, to my glorious, holy, and most kind root and lineage gurus, and in particular Guru Vajrasattva's deity host, I shall offer these as a Buddha field. Please accept them with compassion for the sake of my greating beings. Having accepted them to me and all my greating mother sentient beings, as far as the limits of space, out of your great compassion, please grant your inspiration. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya. Please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma on the receptacle of those to be subdued. Exactly as they need. I'll just read the dedication prayers I have. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all powerful Chenrezig Denzin Gyatso. These remain until samsara ends. The brave Manjushri also summoned Jhado realize things as they are. Therefore, in order to be able to follow their example, I dedicate these merits in the best way. With the dedication praised to Supreme by the victorious ones of the three tongues, I completely dedicate all these roots of virtue so that I might engage in the noble deeds of a bodhisattva. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forever.
אוקיי. תודה רבה. כן? rinpoche nga zo tanda di kuba chi itsama di rinpoche nyandu kuba chi nduna.
They would like to take a photograph with Rinpoche together.